You are here. Okay. So formally, I would like to welcome all of you to the very exciting web talk by none other than Professor Stephen Krashen, who has very kindly agreed to give this talk, and that too on a topic which has not been spoken much about, that is secrets of writing. Actually, Professor Krashen has given us options that which topics you would prefer, and we have selected these secrets of writing. So thank you for agreeing to speak on this very prominent topic of these days, and everyone talking about the writing and stuff like that. So to initiate with, to begin with, I just wanted to have a brief history about our university, our department. Since 1920, this very old institution started with 1875 as a college, Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, and in 1920, it has become a full-fledged university. And in 1968, the linguistics department came into existence, and since then, we are working in teaching and research, and we are one of the very few universities in India that has undergraduate program in linguistics. So like 4 or 5 we can count. But in recent years, there is a great aware about the linguistics, and most of the IITs, like Indian Institute of Technology, and newly established federal universities by the government of India have like language, culture, linguistics program in various universities. So we have a good, and as we know, India is one of the richest linguistic nation in the world. So we have so much to do with the language and its applications. So with this brief intro, we do not want to take much of the time between the speaker and the audience. So I would like to say a few words before we invite formally to Professor Stephen Krashen. Actually, the format of the talk is like we can have 45 minutes of the talk, then there will be question answer session moderated by my senior colleague and my teacher, Professor ImtiazHasnain, a great sociolinguist. And then the vote of thanks will be presented by my junior colleague, Dr. Nazrin B. Laskar. In between, Professor Stephen Krashen has his own time, he is free to take as long as he wants. And first of all, I would like to thank him for his time and generosity, and without any demand, he has agreed to. So we are very much thankful at the university, and as a department, we would like to thank you also. So to start with, Professor Stephen Krashen, an American linguist and educational researcher, is the emeritus professor at the University of Southern California. Professor Krashen has published enormously in the field of literacy, language acquisition, neurolinguistics, and bilingual education. He is best known for his magnum research, better known as comprehension hypothesis. Professor Krashen is the recipient of many prestigious awards, such as the Pimsleur Award for the Best Published Article and Middleburg Award for his book Second Language Acquisition and Second Language Learning. He is the most frequently cited scholar in the field of language education. His monitor model is known as the monitor model of Stephen Krashen, one of the most cited theories in the field of second language learning. This famous theory is a group of 5 hypotheses of the second language acquisition, and these are input hypothesis, the acquisition learning hypothesis, the monitor hypothesis, the natural order hypothesis, and the affective filter hypothesis. So just to begin with, there are many comments I have received, many notices I have received, many email messages I have received. Everyone saying, "Oh, so great! We are using his theory, we are using his model. So you are known everywhere. So we are so fortunate to have you with us at this moment." So without taking much of the time that Professor Stephen Krashen will be speaking on secrets of writing, and according to him, writing a style that is accuracy comes from reading. But writing is a powerful means of solving problems and making anyone smarter. Peter Elbow has said, quote, meaning is what you end up with, not what you start out with. This happens largely through revision, rereading what we have written, and making improvement. This presentation is based on Professor Krashen's interaction with scholars investigating the composing process. So with these few words, I would like to invite Professor Krashen to speak on secrets of writing. So we would like to welcome you, Professor Stephen, and the floor is yours now.
Okay, thank you very much for the beautiful introduction. I have to tell you why this topic is interesting to me. I'm going to report to you on research that I have not done. This is not my research, it's other people's research, but it has helped me enormously. It has made the last decade so much better and has made me a more productive, and I have to tell you, a happier person as well. So I owe a great debt to the researchers I'm going to tell you about. I've called it Secrets of Writing. They were all secrets to me a few years ago. I have discovered these things, and it gives me great pleasure to share them all with you. First, let me tell you another secret. If you look at your screen, you'll see behind me, there are empty bookshelves. This is my office. This is Steve Krashen's office, and he has no books on his shelves. I have to explain that. Let me tell you about Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States. When the United States was founded, they went to war with Great Britain, and the British destroyed the Library of Congress. They lost all their books. Thomas Jefferson donated 6,000 books to supply some books to the Library of Congress. I'm proud to tell you, I have given away 6,000 books. This happens to you when you get to be older. It's going to happen to you. You're going to have to give these things away. This used to be filled with books. It's not anymore. Everything is now on digital. And I'll talk about that. That means it's easier for me to share them with you. And I'm going to make you a special offer of free books and articles. Okay, the secrets of writing. Secret number one. More writing does not mean better writing. If you write more, it doesn't improve your writing. We don't acquire language by output. We acquire language by input. Writing style, spelling, grammar, putting together good sentences, the right form of essays, that doesn't come from writing. It comes from reading. This is my other work, the comprehensible input hypothesis. But writing does something else. Dr. Warsi mentioned this to you. Writing helps us solve problems. As has been quoted, Peter Elbow said beautifully, meaning is what you end up with, not what you start out with. I'll be quoting Peter Elbow a great deal. When I first got started in this, I gave a speech at a conference, and one of the other invited speakers was Peter Elbow, and I finally got to meet him, and I was able to thank him for all of his contributions that have helped me personally. The main thing that helps with writing, that helps you solve problems, is revision. Revision is magic. I have learned to love revision, and I hope this happens to you too. As Elbow says, meaning is what you end up with. That happens when you revise. This is the core of what we call the composing process. Here's Neil Simon, not a researcher, but a playwright. Mediocre writers write, good writers rewrite. Kurt Vonnegut, another fiction writer, brilliant. Writing allows even a stupid person to seem halfway intelligent. If only that person will write the same thought over and over again, improving it just a little bit each time, a lot like inflating a blimp with a bicycle pump. Anybody can do it. All it takes is time. I have reread that quote at least 1,000 times, and it still helps. The next quote is one of the most important. It has helped me probably as much as any other. I have to tell you in introducing this topic that my talk deals with academic writing, yes, student writing, but it has helped me in the real world as well, not just in the other world, not just the academics as well. I have another career. I live in Southern California, and in Southern California, it is very important that you be engaged in show business. Everybody in Southern California is involved in show business. It's expected. You go to a restaurant, you order your food, the waiter is not just a waiter, he's an actor. He's working on a script. If you get pulled over by the police for speeding and they give you a traffic ticket, if you tell them, I'm on my way to a rehearsal, they'll say, oh, go ahead, we'll give you a police escort. Show business is everything in Southern California, and I too am involved in show business. I have written 10 musicals, I am proud to say, and they have all been performed. I write them for my synagogue. My synagogue is a very liberal, progressive synagogue, and every year we put on a play, and I write the play. It's a humorous play. It's based on the holiday of Purim, which is based on the book of Esther, in what some people call the Old Testament. I call the Bible, being Jewish. That's all there is for me. And we write a play on the book of Esther. We retell the story of Purim in a humorous way. We usually base it on a movie, on a play or something. And the cast of the play, I also go to the rehearsals and help with the play. The cast comes from the synagogue choir. And because I know the people very well, they know the play very well. And every year, when I go to the major Jewish holiday, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the people in the play want to know, what's the play going to be about this year? What movie are you going to base it on? And I don't know. I procrastinate. I wait. And I wait till the last minute. It's a bad habit. And then I break through. I remember, the hardest thing is the first draft. And I remember the wise words of Ernest Hemingway. Now, I'm going to quote Ernest Hemingway. This is not my words. This is Hemingway words, and they have helped me more than any other. The first draft of anything is shit. Isn't that beautiful? Don't worry, the first draft is not going to be any good. You write the first draft and then you start to revise. And that's where you make the progress. I sit down, I write the first draft. First draft takes me just an outline, 15 minutes, and then I stop. The next day, I write for 20 minutes. The next day, 30 minutes. At the end of the week, the first draft, the draft is done. Most of the play is finished. Thanks to Ernest Hemingway, I start revising, and that's when the progress comes, okay? So I do a plan, like everybody else, okay? It's one of my enthusiastic fans. Okay. When the first draft is very important, it doesn't have to be any good. Revision then takes over. Well, in terms of planning is important. Good writers plan, but the important thing is good writers are willing to change their plans. This is part of secret number 3, okay? Because what you end up with is not what you start out with. I read a great quote from Robert Frost a week ago, and I just added it. Robert Frost says the same thing about poetry. I've never started a poem yet whose end I knew. Writing a poem is discovering. Writing anything is discovering. So remember Ernest Hemingway. The first draft is not going to be very good, except that The improvement will come with revision. This has been of huge help to me. Secret number 4, revision means you've made mistakes, you've gotten things wrong, and you're going to change them. And this happens to everybody. I am name dropping now. I actually had a conversation on a webinar with Noam Chomsky. Can you imagine that? And he agreed with me. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. This is how we make progress. I have learned to welcome revision. Realize I'm going to make mistakes, a lot of them. The first draft is shit, and little by little, I'm going to improve it, as Kurt Vonnegut says, and that is the composing process. My son, the real Dr. Krashen, is a mathematician, and he and his wife, they're both professors of mathematics, sent me this quote about one of their teachers years ago, John Tate. John Tate was once asked by his students, what is your normal workday like? This was very helpful. And he said, well, about 10% of the time, I'm making progress. About 40% of the time, I'm working very hard, 50%, and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm making no progress. And the rest of the time, I'm worried, how can I be so stupid wasting all this time? That's normal. That's my day too. I wrote my son the other day and his wife, and I said, I had another John Tate day where I got a little bit of work done, and most of it was confusion and making mistakes and revision. And my daughter-in-law wrote back, Angela Gibney, mathematician. She said, I had a John Tate day too. It's like that every day. You make progress at the end of the day. You see how much you've done, but you couldn't tell while it was happening. So John Tate, the person who quoted him, said, he made the point that even smart people struggle, and they waste time worrying about it. I'm getting some feedback, Dr. Warsi. Can we correct that? I'm hearing myself. Oh, okay, it's fine. Okay. So this is a famous quote. Too many creators think that other people get it right the first time. They don't. Nobody does. I remember when I was in secondary school, on Mondays we had to hand in our compositions that we had done over the weekend. That was the assignment. And I had my composition ready, and it was hell going home. Over the weekend, I went through draft after draft, and my floor of my bedroom was cluttered with papers that didn't work. And the young man next to me, the student next to me, had finished his draft. He looked like he had had a good night's sleep. I leaned over, I could see what he wrote. It was beautiful. It looked so effortless, so clear. I talked to him about it. I said, how did you do that? You just wrote it. It came out of the other side. It was beautiful. You didn't struggle. He said, oh no. This was the 4th time I had tried to write on this topic. My room at home is a mess. There are papers all over the floor, just like my room. None of those worked. This one worked, but it took all weekend. You just saw the final draft. This is normal. This is what we all go through. Nobody simply gets it right the first time. A wonderful book, which I highly recommend, was done by Hans Ohanian. It's called Einstein's Mistakes, The Human Failings of Genius. I got a copy of the book when it first came out. His wife is Susan Ohanian, one of my colleagues in literacy. And Susan and I talk all the time. And she said, Hans wrote this book about Einstein. I said, I'd like to get a copy right away. And they knew I was interested in Einstein, and they sent me a copy. I read it immediately. I wrote Hans and Susan back. And I said, you made a big mistake. The title, Einstein's Mistakes. The book was not about Einstein's mistakes. The book was about the composing process and having to revise over and over again. Einstein would write a paper for a journal, and a year later, he would submit another paper on the same topic. And he would say, last year's paper was wrong. Here's the real one. A year later, he'd submit another paper on the same topic and said, last year's paper was wrong. Here's the right one. He did it 4 times. So I wrote Hans this column. I said, the book is incorrect. The title is incorrect. Ohanian, you made a mistake. The book tells us more than mistakes. To paraphrase Johannes Kepler, it reveals the wondrous and twisted roads that lead to knowledge. Guess what? I got famous because of this comment. They put this comment on the back cover. So if you go to a bookstore and you see this book, my comment is on the cover. That is so wonderful. So I have this friend at the university. Back in the old days, we used to mimeograph and Xerox our papers and give it to our friends before the computer. And he had a stamp that he put on all of his drafts. This does not represent my current position. This is true. We are always revising. This is how we get smart, by making mistakes and correcting them. Secret number 5, reread. More from Ernest Hemingway. I rise at first light, and I start by rereading and editing everything I had written to the point I left off. What happened to you overnight? You were coming up, your subconscious was solving the problems. You were incubating. I'll be talking a lot about that. Secret number 6, delay editing. Work on your ideas. I'm going to distinguish editing and revision. This talk is about revision. It means better ideas. Editing is low level. It means correcting your spelling, correcting your grammar. It's simply cosmetic. All experts on writing, Peter Elbow and all his colleagues say the same thing, and they're all correct. Delay editing. Don't worry about cosmetic changes. Don't worry about spelling and punctuation and grammar until you are sure you are on your final draft. Then you can do the cosmetics. Put on your makeup after your shower. Don't put on your makeup before your shower. I would never do that, okay? Editing is like doing makeup. It's like putting on your lipstick and all the other things that some people do, okay? If you do it too early, you're going to disturb the flow of ideas. Very good advice. Number 7, here's a big one. Courage incubation. I discovered this when I was at the University of Texas 20 years ago. And I was giving several talks, and between talks, I went to the library. In those days, libraries were different. In those days, you could go into the library and actually see the books. Now it's all on, digital, and you can't see the books. I love when you can walk through, see the books, look at the journals, and just on a break, I'll tell you about breaks in a moment, I found a book by Graham Wallace called The Art of Thought. And there was a chapter on problem solving. And he said one of the stages of problem solving is doing nothing. Incubation, an interval free of conscious thought. Get your ideas down, and then if you have a problem, take a break and do nothing. Incubation will come through, and the subconscious will solve your problems. This is true, my friends. This is so absolutely true. This is a great gift from Graham Wallace. Told all true artists, whether they know it or not, create from a place of no mind, from inner stillness. Breakthroughs come at a time of mental quietude. The one who's helped me the most on this, a mathematician named Poincaré. Poincaré really did a non-Euclidean geometry, which was very important to Albert Einstein. In fact, it was often said that Poincaré deserved the Nobel Prize for his work, which led to relativity, okay? And he wrote an article on creativity, and it is included in every collection I have of papers on creativity. Here's what he says. He says, I'm doing my work on mathematics and I run into a problem that I can't solve. He said, it happens to me all the time. Doesn't that make you feel better? It certainly helped me. He says, I run into writer's blocks all day long. That is my life. One writer's block after another. It's true of everybody. His solution changed my life. When I have a writer's block, I get up from my desk and I do something mindless. In his case, 100 years ago, he puts wood on the fire. Wow. Then he comes back to his writing. The breaks are very, very short. They're just 2-3 minutes. Then he comes back and the problem is a little bit better, a little easier to solve. The log jam has broken up a little bit. For me, my life is one writer's block after another. I'll tell you what I do on writer's blocks. My favorite activity in writer's block is to clean up the office. I don't clean up the whole thing. My office is such a mess, just like yours, that I file one paper of the hundreds that are on the floor and on the desk, okay? Or if I'm near the kitchen, which I sometimes am, I wash 3 dishes. By the way, if you ever have dinner at my house, I do the dishes, don't even offer. Here's how I like to do the dishes. The dishes is my work. I don't let, my wife doesn't do it, nobody, I like doing the dishes. I go into the kitchen, I bring my computer into the kitchen. I put it down, open the computer, and then I wash 3 dishes. And I put away 2 that have been drying. Then I go back and start doing my reading. As I read and write and make changes, I'm always working on something, a composition, an outline for a talk, answering a letter. This morning I spent an hour back and forth writing a letter to the editor. I love doing that. And after 3 minutes of writing, I have a writer's block. It happens all the time. I get up, wash a few dishes. I can take a job in the kitchen that takes the average person 20 minutes, and I finish it in an hour and a half because I'm always taking writer's blocks. But at the end of that time, the kitchen is clean, and I have made terrific progress in my writing. I've answered my correspondence, I've written a letter to the editor, I've written 3 footnotes, etc. Let me tell you about my secret life in hotel rooms. I don't do this anymore because I don't go to hotels anymore. Still in quarantine, thanks to COVID. So we're home all the time, which is great. I love it. I'm home alone with my girlfriend. It's really nice. We've only been married 54 years, so we're still having a good time. Anyway, at home, I do the exact same thing. In hotels, I don't do it in hotels anymore, but I do it now. I check into a hotel. The first thing I do is take the suitcase out and put it on the bed and then start my work. Open the computer, start my work. Immediately a writer's block, immediately. I get up from the desk, go over to the suitcase, hang up 3 shirts, that's all. Then go back to the work. I had my incubation has done its work. The writer's block is a little easier. Go back to writing. A few minutes later, another writer's block. Go back, hang up some more shirts, a couple of pieces of underwear. At the end of the evening, I've done a lot of writing and the hotel room is clean. My suitcase is unpacked, okay? So this is what I do. This idea of rereading the next day that Hemingway did, you have the result of 24 hours of incubation, or 12 hours of incubation that you got the night before. Okay, secret number 8. Thanks to Stephen King, Susan Sontag, and Madeleine L'Engle. Writing is the source of inspiration. When I made this when I was in the choir and I worked on the Purim play, they would always ask me, what's the next play going to be? And I never had any ideas. And I thought, well, I know what I'll do. I'll go for a walk and I'll get some ideas. Never works. I know what I'll do. I'll sing in the choir, play the piano, do some other things. I'll get some ideas. No, never works. The way to do it is to start writing. Stephen King. Don't wait for the muse. Don't wait for the creative spirit. Your job is to make sure the muse knows where you're going to be every day, from 9 till noon or 7 till 3. Susan Sontag, you can't wait for inspiration. Madeleine L'Engle, brilliant author of children's literature. Inspiration usually comes during work rather than before it. And by work, I mean do the cycle. Start to write, have a writer's block, take a short break, go back and write. Write again, another writer's block, short break, go back and write. That, to me, is what writing is about. It's not taking a long walk and waiting for inspiration to come. That doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. That's for sure. Wallace Stevens' quote I recently just found in Susan Ohanian's book. He apparently took long breaks, but not really. Listen to this. He wrote poetry best while walking, but he carried slips of paper in his pocket and put down ideas and notes that they occurred to him. When he got ideas during his break, he wrote them down. Otherwise, they're lost. When you get an idea, it's not going to come back unless you write it down. Where you're working on your writing right there. The famous quote, guy had this great idea, sank to his knees to thank God for it. By the time he got up, he had forgotten the idea and never recalled it. You have to be at your desk or have slips of paper. Secret number 9, daily, regular writing. This is beautiful. This is the work of Irving Wallace, who's a novelist, a very good novelist, who did some work interviewing writers on how they did it. And this is from his papers on this. His conclusion, the vast majority of authors keep some semblance of regular, daily hours. I do too, okay? I have writing time, which is just about most of the day, okay? But it's regular. I know, like when I get up immediately, first thing is 3 hours of writing. No question by the time people wake up. I woke up this morning at 4. I was writing till just before 7. And by writing, I mean having writer's block, taking a quick break, going back, trying to write again, alternating the cycle. Now, when you write is variable. Some people are by the time clock. Michael Shabana, novelist, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. Maya Angelou, wonderful writer, she rented a hotel room near her house, left the house, went to the hotel and wrote all morning. And again, by writing, I mean writer's block, break, go back to writing, okay? Some people are timekeepers. This was Stephen King. He wrote every day for a certain amount of time. Some people are page counters. Stephen King also did 10 pages a day. Some people are word counters. Everyone develops their own system. It doesn't matter. I'll tell you what I do. I do timekeeping. I also do word counting. Now I'm going to tell you what my quota is, but don't take my word for it. You have to find your own rhythm. My quota is when I'm working on a long piece and I'm about to start one, I already wrote in my notes, so I'm going to do 600 words. If I do 595, I feel unfulfilled. Something is missing, okay? If I write 610, I feel stale. It's too much. I have to stop and wait for another day. Whatever it is, it's regular, daily writing that makes the difference. One of the people I'd like to meet is this guy Boyce. Professor Boyce, a professor at the State University of New York, Robert Boyce, he was a professor of counseling. And his job was to counsel new professors and help them with their writing. Isn't that wonderful? He found that the new professors he talked to all were worried. They were worried about tenure. Professors out there, you know all about tenure. It's a brutal system. It means that you're a professor and after 5, 6 years, you have to hand in your portfolio, all the papers that you've written that have been published, and then you are judged whether you live or die. If you get tenure, life is sweet. You have permanent employment. If you don't get tenure, you're fired, and it's difficult to find another position, okay? It's quite a brutal system. He found that, oh, by the way, tenure, here's the truth about tenure. They claim that it's based on your scholarship, on your service, and on your teaching. You all know that's not true. It's based on your scholarship. If your teaching is okay or brilliant, it doesn't matter. If your teaching is terrible, you will get into trouble. But if it's just okay, they're going to leave you alone. That's the unpleasant truth. Service, you have to do a little bit of it, but you don't have to go crazy, okay? I took it very seriously. It was a good idea, but it's really your scholarships. So what Boyce did is he worked with junior scholars who were going through this horrible process of trying to get tenure, and he looked at their writing habits. He found they naturally divided into 2 groups. One group did what we just found. They did daily, regular writing. They wrote every day for a certain amount of time. This was the most common. They all got tenure, every single one of them. And their writing time varied. For some of them, it was 2 hours a day. For others, it was 40 minutes a day.
Professor, you are muted.
How did that happen? Okay, I'm talking about Robert Boyce's work. The professors, the young professors who made it during tenure time, who got tenure, all had regular daily writing. They wrote a certain amount each day, or they wrote a certain amount of time each day. They had a relaxed life. They all did good work. Because they did it every day, incubation took place and they did good work. The other group were what he called binge writers. This is a term we get from dieting. You've all tried this. I see you all look like you're in good shape, so it worked. Binge is you have a good diet, you're very careful, but one day a week you binge. You go on an ice cream binge. You have all the vanilla ice cream that you want. You have 3 scoops, 4 scoops, and that's called binging. The binge writers didn't do daily regular writing. They said, I can't write like this. I have to wait for inspiration, and the conditions have to be perfect. I need at least 5 peaceful hours in order to read, in order to write. I can't have any noise. All the traffic around my house has to stop. We'll call the airport, make sure the airplanes don't fly overhead. Everything has to be perfect. Guess what? None of these people got tenure. They didn't get anything done. First of all, the perfect time of quiet, 5 hours free didn't come. It's amazing. It didn't come. And for the few cases it did, they had lost their place. They didn't know where they were. It's like having a big ball of string and trying to find the end. Daily, regular writing was the answer for all of these people. As far as I could tell, no exceptions, okay? By the way, if you've missed the handout, I will send a copy to Dr. Warsi and he can make it available to you. Thanks, I've given you a task. Thanks for your help, okay? Well, if I miss a little writing, I don't know where I am. Charles Dickens said the same thing. If Charles Dickens missed a day of writing, he needed a week of hard slog to get back into the flow. Powerful. I write every day. I can't go a day without writing. I don't know where I am. Just like Dickens, even a day of missing it cost me several days to catch up as to where I was. So this is a powerful secret. Secret number 10 I got from Peter Elbow. He actually recommends that you write before you start working on anything else. If you have to do a composition, if you're going to do a composition, what we normally do is we first read everything that's been written on it, right? And you go and look at the journals and you see what the great minds have said. Peter Elbow says, no. Sit down and write your first draft before you read the journals, before you read the textbooks, before you even talk to people. Write your own draft, get your ideas down. Quote, it's easier to write now when you know less. Then look at what other people said. And the way he says it, look to see if they were smart enough to come up with the same ideas that you had. This really works because writing helps thinking. Write the first draft, work on it. Your ideas will be clear, and then read just to confirm or see if you were right, see if you were wrong. Then read to see what other people think. When you read, don't read everything. Secret 11, read narrowly. Only read what you need to read to see if your first ideas were right. I got this idea, a wonderful paper from a man named Bazerman, who examined the reading habits of physicists. This was in the old days when you could go to the library and find journals right there. You didn't have to look them up on the computer and all that stuff. And here's what they did. They would find a journal in their field, an article that was interesting, but they didn't read all the articles. Well, they only read articles that were about what he was working on today. Today, believe it or not, this morning, I'm working on an article on comic book reading, okay? What the research says about it, whether it's good for you. The only thing I'm reading in the research is articles about comic books. If I look at a new journal and there's an article, even if they quote me, well, I'll look at that one, but I don't look at it very carefully. So what Bazerman's physicists did, they would look at the new journals, briefly look at the articles, but only carefully read the articles that pertained to what they were working on today. If you give in to temptation and you read everything, it won't help. You'll forget it immediately. Some of you have had this experience. I have had it. I look at the journals. I still have journals on my shelf, books, and I find my underlining, my notes. And it was something I had read maybe a few days ago. And I have no idea what my comments were because I wasn't working on that topic. If I read today, it's going to be only on research on comic books. Then I'll remember it because it affects my writing. Read narrowly. Don't worry about keeping up with the literature. Your teacher is not standing behind you about to give you a quiz on what just came out in the journals, okay? So don't worry about keeping up. Okay, let's talk about writing things up and writing up research papers. The next section is about research papers. I think it has something to say about everything, okay? I write research papers, and a lot of them are empirical, the results of studies, and they have numbers in them. And here is my system, and this may be of use. I think in general, it applies to everything. Every research paper that has numbers in it has a central table that gives the whole story right there. Like, for example, you did an experiment where half the people drank coffee, half the people didn't, then they did a task. There's always a table. You'll have plus coffee, minus coffee, their mean scores, what the average was, etc. And that's the main table. That's what the article's about. Everything else is commentary. When I write an article, I work on the central table first. When I write an opinion paper, my point is always first. The major, I don't begin with the introduction. I begin with the main idea, always. This saves a lot of time. my nasty comment for today. I think a lot of authors never get to the main idea. They're so busy writing the introduction. That's all that's published, et cetera, and it's a big waste of time for everybody, okay? After the central table, the supporting data. How many subjects did you have? How old were they, et cetera. Then write up the supporting tables that frames the tables. Then the procedure that comes next. How many, where did you do it? How many subjects were there? And then the conclusion. Now, conclusions, if you have seen them in articles, usually begin with a short summary. That's a good idea, what the article was about. Not very long, 2 sentences. Then the next section, all the things that you did wrong. I call this apologies. Here's what I did wrong. Then the implications. Keep it short. I don't really appreciate it when other scholars tell me what to do with my life. Here's what needs to be done next. We don't need to tell experienced researchers what they should be doing next. They know. I would keep that very, very short. And then, of course, the future research. One of my favorite articles I got from the journal Nature. I downloaded it. You can find it there. It's by Crick and Watson. They invented the idea of the double helix, the study of DNA, RNA, and the helix, the form. That was their discovery. Very exciting. They wrote a brief article about it. And you can download this and you can understand it. It's beautiful. If you remember half of your secondary school biology, you can get a pretty good idea. It's that clear. It's only 2 pages. This is wonderful, okay? The conclusion, the entire conclusion I have put in the notes. It has not escaped our notice that the specific pairing we've postulated suggests a possible copying mechanism for genetic material. If you know the field, you know what they're talking about if you've read the article. You don't need to tell people what to do with the next 10 years of their life. Keep it short. Last thing you do, the introduction. Keep it short. You don't have to review the entire research. When you write an article, it is not your dissertation. It needs to be short because you're writing for experts. You're not writing for students. Just write enough introduction so they know where your article fits. That's how to write a paper, in my opinion. Where do you publish it? Well, we're always told by our writing teachers, consider your audience. And you should consider your audience before you start writing. My advice is the opposite. Forget your audience. Write the paper. That comes first. Don't write it for a journal. Don't write it for a magazine. Get your ideas down clearly. Delay consideration of your audience until you're nearly done. When you're done, your article will tell you where it should be published. It will be very, very clear. The article I've been working on comic books, I've been writing with a co-author, Nishthan Ashtari, and we just finished the draft, and now we have a pretty good idea where it's going to go. I didn't realize it before I got there, okay? So delay audience. Now, secret 14, here's a big one. Expect rejection. Everyone gets rejected. Nobody talks about it. I recommend a wonderful book, by the way, called Rotten Reviews. It's what people have said about great authors and great papers. The best, most classic papers have been rejected, have been criticized. The American Psychological Association announced that 3/4 of the articles submitted to their journals have been rejected. The good ones get accepted eventually by other journals or the same ones. You keep trying. This is normal. I'll tell you about most of my journal papers I do a little better now with acceptance because I have a better idea where to accept, where to submit them. But let me tell you about my letters to the editor. The world record for letters to the editor is done by someone in India, not where you live on the other side near Kerala. And he has published, I think, 3,000 letters to the editor. That's the record. I think I probably have the record for letters submitted, not for letters accepted. Most of them get rejected. I actually do pretty well. About 5% of letters to the editor are accepted. My percentage is about 10%, okay? So I'm doing okay, but I still keep doing it. I expect them to be rejected because they get so many. And it's always interesting because I learn so much when I'm writing them, and I have the ideas forever. Expect rejection. Don't take it personally. If you get rejected, take care of it immediately. Don't let it sit. Don't get angry. Look at the comments that people have made and deal with them. If you think they're right, change your paper. If you think they're wrong, don't change your paper. Don't resubmit. Don't make changes to please the editors. It's your paper, not the editor's paper. You will be blamed for the mistakes that the editors make. So immediately decide if you are going to change the paper or not. If you are going to change it and resubmit, and only make the changes that you think are right. This has helped me a great deal. Don't let it sit, do it right away. Secret number 15, live in the past. The normal research that we are trained to do and trained to respect, excuse me, is what is called primary research. That means new research, new data, etc. And I think that is important. I've done a lot of it. We've actually done a new study, a survey or an experiment, and published it. There's also other kinds called secondary research and meta-analyses. Secondary research, and I recommend this to you, you take old data that's already been published and you take another look. You reanalyze it. And you reanalyze it for several reasons. Number one, we know more than the old people did. The article published 20 years ago, we know more. Also, we have new statistical tests. Let me tell you about secondary analysis that I did. I'm going to mute myself and clear my throat. Now I'm back. I found, walking through libraries, I found a series of papers on spelling written in 1897 and 1902. Imagine that. And they had data what happened when they gave students in school spelling tests and whether it helped if the students had spelling instruction. They found that it didn't matter. Spelling instruction had no effect. They didn't have the statistical tests that we have today. Those tests were invented in the 1920s. So, and they didn't have Steve Krashen's theories today about the impact of reading. So my student, Howard White, and I reanalyzed their data, took it from their journal, gave them lots of credit, and republished their data with new statistical analyses, and we found that they were right. Instruction didn't count. That was very satisfying. This is how we honor our lineage. We honor the past by respecting and using other people's research. In terms of rejection, by the way, my conclusion is that spelling doesn't come from instruction, it comes from reading. That was the conclusion, and that was consistent with other data that we have. I submitted it, I'll tell you where, to a journal on reading called the Reading Research Quarterly, the ¡1 most prestigious journal in reading. They rejected it immediately. 3 reviewers, and they all said, but they didn't, I could tell they didn't even read it. They said, this is a reading journal, not a spelling journal. Well, there are no spelling journals. This is the only choice we have. And I concluded spelling comes from reading. Howard White and I did not rewrite it. We didn't have to. We sent it out right away. Another journal accepted it very quickly, and it was taken care of. Secret number 16. This one is the most fun. Unobtrusive measures. This is from a book called Unobtrusive Measures, which I highly recommend to you. It's easy to find. And this is using data, gathering data, where the subjects don't know that it's happening. You don't bother anybody, and it costs nothing. In the book Unobtrusive Measures, one of the examples was beautiful. They talked to an automobile dealer in the city of Chicago. His name was Zachary Frank. And his motto was, Z Frank for your Chevrolet. And he wanted to know where to advertise on radio stations for Z Frank Chevrolet. Well, you could just call people, ask, etc. Instead, he used an unobtrusive measure. He had a repair shop in his dealership where people brought in Chevrolets. He asked the repair people to look at where the radio dials were set. That's how we found out what radio stations Chevrolet drivers listened to. Brilliant. We did, I mentioned my collaborator, Dr. Ashtari, Nishan Ashtari. She did an unobtrusive study. She did the work. I got the credit. It was really her work. We were looking at heritage language, whether people read books in their heritage language. She looked at immigrants to Beverly Hills, Westwood, and Los Angeles from Iran, where she is from, and looked at if there were books available to them in their native language, in Farsi. She went to the local Beverly Hills library and looked at books on the shelf on Farsi to see if anybody had taken them out. Most of the books were books on how to learn Farsi, grammar books. This is an unobtrusive measure. The books were unread. Here's how she did it. She looked to see where the pages were smudged. You could tell if someone's read a book. You can look and see the last page they read. She looked at marks that people had read the books. The average number of pages that people had read, about 5 pages, they gave up. People don't read grammar books. People interested in Farsi don't look at Farsi grammar books. So this is an unobtrusive measure that's very good. Number 17 I did already. Let's go to number 18. Resist infatuation. We are all victims of intellectual infatuation. We fall in love with new ideas. I get an idea and immediately I'm in love. I want to drop what I'm doing and I want to work on this. You're nodding. This happens to you. This is the burden we have. Be careful, okay? Simonton, great writer in creativity. In talking about psychology, the more successful psychologist is one whose research program concentrates on a well-defined set of interrelated topics. Don't spread out too thin. When I'm infatuated, I talk to Dr. Ashtari, and she also counsels me, take it easy, relax, etc. I tell her the same thing. I take a few notes, but then I go back to the research that is part of my program. I make sure that I don't forget it. By the way, I did secret number 17 already. That was 2 criticisms right away. Okay, progress is a natural development from one group of ideas to another, not flitting from interest to interest in an inconsequential matter. I'd like to end this. I'm nearly done, not quite. I'd like to end this by telling you, I'd like to answer the first question that I know you're going to answer, okay? How do we go about this? Why don't people know about these ideas? Why is this new? Why did it take you so long? Why don't people apply these ideas? I think there's good reason why. First of all, the stuff I told you about writing, I didn't know about this until a few years ago. This is all news to me. It's been around for a long time, but it's all news. My work on comprehensible input has not done all that well. Most schools that I go to, the French teacher doesn't know about it. Parents don't know about it, most of the faculty. Why is this true? And there are several reasons why. First of all, scientific knowledge is buried in professional journals and books, written in what I must call torturous prose, very hard to read, okay? And expensive. It's hard to find these things and they cost a lot of money. I think scientific information should be free. Very important. I think it should be in journals that are called open access, that are there for everybody to read. This is for the common good, just like we are giving vaccinations for free all through countries all over the world, because it is for the common good. The same is for scientific knowledge. And I've written a paper about it. Scientific papers are too long. I can't read them, they take too long. I can't get through them. Usually I find an article and it's 30, 40 pages, and the first 20 pages, the author doesn't get to the point. So my articles are not only freely available, but they're 2 pages, 3 pages, etc. Also, the style of writing is horrible. It's gibberish. It's incomprehensible prose. And Chris Hedges says why. As long as academics write in the tortured vocabulary of specializations, where they are unable to influence public debate for conferences, they can say any crazy thing they want. You won't be criticized if your writing is incomprehensible. I learned this when I was a graduate student. I went to a conference, one of my faculty members was there, and he decided to make his paper 5 minutes and not 10 minutes. And he didn't read it, he just said what he did. Everybody understood it. He got more criticism than anyone at the conference because they understood it. So for the future, my recommendation is, this is what I'm doing, articles that are freely available for no charge. And my articles you can find on my website, sdkrashen.com. You are free to download my articles and many of my books. Share it with your friends. It's all free. This is, I think, the only possibility. Articles are so expensive and so hard to read that unless we do something about this, we are facing the end of our profession. We must do this. I think we have no choice. Okay, this is more than enough, I think. Let me take some time if there's any left. Other questions.
Thank you very much, Professor Stephen Krashen. It was such an enlightening talk for us, and everybody has enjoyed. Has several, comments, and everyone is praising your talk, and they have noted down all your 19 or 17 that once you have talked about. And some people has also questions that who has organized this. And the best part, like I would like to mention before I say something about who has organized, people from USA, Pakistan, Egypt, Yemen, Taiwan, Morocco, Philippines, Ecuador, Salvador, like Central America. So all around the world, like those who have written their country, I can read that, and the rest of them without their country, so I cannot say. So all around the world, people is watching right now, and we are so fortunate to have you this time. As far as the organizer is concerned, this is the Department of Linguistics. I am Professor Warsi, the chairperson of the department at Aligarh Muslim University in India. It is a very vibrant department. We are very much actively engaged in research and teaching of linguistics. And as I said earlier in my introduction, we are very few universities that offers undergraduate courses in linguistics. So with these few words, may I request my senior colleague, Professor S.ImtiazHasnain, to take few questions for Professor Stephen Krashen.
Thank you, Professor Warsi, for arranging this wonderful lecture by Professor Stephen Krashen. And Professor Krashen, it's so gratifying to inform you that there has been an overwhelming response to your lecture with more than 250 people across the world participating in this talk given by you. It's remarkable. Professor Krashen, I think I'm also reminded of the ending in the Farewell to Arms, where it has been written 35 times. So this is something which is there with Hemingway, that, of course, 35 times ending is being written. So what you're talking about as revision is crucial for writing. I would now, there are a couple of questions that are already there in the chat box, and few hands have already been raised. Before I look at the chat box, I will invite people who have raised their hands to please be brief with the question and very pointedly ask him, because we do not have much time. Professor Krashen has already taken 1 hour, slightly more than an hour. So we must be very precise in asking the questions. Yes, please, Shams, you were the first to raise this question. Please come with the question. Are you there, Shams? Shams and Maria?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Yes, please.
Good morning, Professor Krashen, and hope you're doing good. And I have been listening very attentively all of your lecture, the entire lecture. And I have a question, because in the entire course of your lecture, I would have not heard about, but I want to ask you about the translation studies. My question is there is any satisfactory translation available? And if so, if not, what are the strategies that we can employ to make a translation satisfactory to the audience we write for?
Sir, I had a little bit of interference on my computer. Could you restate the question?
Yes, why not, sir? My question is there a satisfactory translation to any text? And if not, what can be the strategies we can employ to make a translation satisfactory?
I'll give you my clear answer. I really don't know. Something I haven't read about, etc. I'll depend on you to come up with the answer, because I know you're thinking about it. And I recommend you start writing about it and let us know. Okay.
Ariba Shabir, are you there? Ariba Shabir. Okay, Kaniz, Aisha, and Maria Nisar. Would you like to come forward with your question?
Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank to Dr. Krashen for the wonderful talk. Your talk was very insightful, and I learned a lot from your talk. But my question is that, sir, which strategies are language which should be followed in our formal writing? I wanted to ask you.
This is amazing. The moment someone asks their questions, I get interference. Murray, could you restate your question?
Yeah, may I request, like everyone among the audience, please mute yourself so that people can ask questions clearly. So please do not unmute unless you are asked to. Please.
Please restate the question.
Okay, have you got the question?
No, please restate it.
No, I don't.
Okay. Sir, I wanted to ask you that which strategies are which language tools which we should be followed in our formal writing?
Which language does literacy follow? Was that your question? I don't quite understand.
Yeah, the question seems to be not clear. Please reframe the question.
Yeah, it'd be easier if I read it.
Yeah.
The question is actually that what strategies should be followed while writing formally, or in formal writing, what strategies we should follow?
Okay, strategy. From what I have said today, what I think the crucial parts of the strategy when you're writing, I like to begin the same thing, doing what Peter Elbow recommended. First, write a draft. It can be very sloppy. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Get your ideas. You can reread what you did, see what you got wrong, improve them, then do what Kurt Vonnegut says, keep making small changes, like blowing up a blimp with a bicycle pump, and then you'll have better ideas. Then start reading. Compare what you've seen other experts say to what you have said. Revise, revise, revise. I've had some amazing experiences like this. I remember once I was on an airplane from Los Angeles to Hong Kong, and I had already written the paper for the conference, which is very unusual. And I was going to spend the whole 12 hours watching movies and reading a book. Well, I wound up rewriting my entire paper. I got up from my chair because the guy next to me fell asleep on my shoulder. That was kind of uncomfortable. So I went to the place where you get snacks. I had nothing to do, so I rewrote the paper. I revised it. I found so many things wrong with it. It was a wonderful experience. I made such intellectual progress. The way the writing process is revision, 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 revision. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. Keep your editing and fine points to the very end. Get the ideas as correct as you can. And I promise you, when you look at the paper again 2 years later, you'll find more things wrong. That's the best, and that's good. That means you're learning things, you're making progress. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. Thanks for asking the question. That was a good one.
Thank you, Khanis, Aisha. Dr. Rashid Nihal, please. Rashid Nihal, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Yes, please.
Good evening, all of you. My question is very simple to Professor Krashen, that the strategies that you have been talking about in terms of secrets of writing, how far they are relevant for second language writers, and can this be very effectively flowed for second language writers? Why I'm saying that, because sometimes supporting bilingual writers, especially to develop writing at the developmental stages, it confuses the teacher educators in South Asian countries. One. The second is, when Rames talks about mastery of the sentence to mastery of the paragraph, and then mastery of the paragraph to essay writing, then we are talking about the structure of writing. The South Asian countries, they are normally involved with the teaching of writing as part of the English textbooks that are being prescribed. So the very idea of revision, which is very, very relevant to any writer, is not really translatable to these conditions. Your thoughts, please.
Yes, it is frustrating, I know. In terms of bilingual or writing in a second language, what I've been talking about is how we get new ideas.
Sir, you are at mute.
Here we go. Second language writing. The form of writing comes from reading, of course. So massive reading in the second language is going to take care of most of our form problems, and then delaying the editing part till the end. The composing process, the revision process, is exactly the same. For people with, for many people, it helps to get the first draft done in the first language. I have done that. I've written with people, and we write articles in French and other languages, and I have to go over the final version. I found it easier to do the first version in English and then do the second version because I'm not that good in the other languages. But the process is the same. We use writing to come up with new ideas. We delay editing until the final part, and most of our knowledge of text structure comes from reading. By the way, I have looked at textbooks on text structure, how to do this, how to write a good introduction. Okay, what is the form of introductions? What did people do before John Swales did his research? and told us what was in introductions. They had acquired it from reading. That's where it comes from. We don't have to worry too much about it if we've done a huge amount of reading. Reading is where we get text structure. I think teaching text structure has been overdone. It's extremely complicated, hard to do, and it's acquired naturally from reading. You get a feel for it. Okay, next question.
Thank you. I'll just take one or two questions more, Professor Krashen. I understand you must be retired by now. So Hernandez, can you please come forward with your question? Hernandez, are you there?
Hello?
Yes?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Pineda? Okay.
Yeah, please.
Thanks a lot. I'm really proud and I feel privileged and honored to be listening to Dr. Krashen. I have been to his TESOL conventions participations, and I feel honored, and thanks for the organizers to come up with this great opportunity. Professor Krashen, I have a question. You have presented the writing process from the perspective, oftentimes from the perspective of writers. How about instructors, professors facilitating this process? Because this reminds me of my experience at the University of New Mexico when I became familiar with the writing process approach, in which the professor would let us revise, redo, rewrite papers until we would come up, like after the third time, with the final draft, and it was really good. So would you give us some suggestions as professors on how to administrate the writing process with our students?
I would tell them about the secrets that I just told you.
Okay.
This is it. I know the frustration you're talking about. A while ago, 20 years ago, a colleague of mine and I, excuse me, decided to teach a writing class, how to write. And we made arrangements with the English department where we could teach as a guest lecturer. And we had conversations with 10 writing instructors to see how they did it. 10 people, 10 different ways of doing it. And I had no idea what to do. It was doing the work that I've shared with you for the first time has given me an idea of how to teach a class. I have given you the syllabus. It's telling students these secrets of writing, that writing is not how you become a better writer, that revision is how you get smarter, and there's nothing wrong with being wrong, and it's lots of revision. The most important thing, when you see you've made a mistake and you have to revise, be happy. It means you're learning something new. That's what I would teach in a class like this.
Okay, and I would like briefly to ask you what elements from reading we can incorporate into writing.
Hernandez, I'm sorry I have to intervene. Let me give a chance to some other person. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nihal Ahmed, do you have a question there? Nihal Ahmed? Zawad Rami?
Yes, thanks a lot for giving me a chance here. Actually, I have a question regarding improvisation. I mean, I have finished writing of my research paper without reading any articles or journals. And it is based on my understanding and completing my course syllabus. So is this the way we can have improvisation in our writing and on ideas?
For me, if I understand you correctly, improvisation is writing to discover what you're thinking. And then it's very similar to Peter Elbow has recommended. First, before you read, then you discover what you're thinking. Just what you're doing, revise your own draft. composing process and using revision. Because it's a new area, there's not much to read about, but that's okay. So we're really talking the same language, I think.
Just last two questions, Professor Krashen, and we'll stop. Farooq Mir. Do you have a question?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Professor Krashen, I would like to know, as you were talking about the intellectual infatuation. So, as per I could understand, intellectual infatuation is a reality for a researcher. So how can we get maximum from the intellectual infatuation while not losing on time and energy?
Yes, what I recommend is write down what you're thinking about. Write down the infatuation, what the ideas are. Take a few minutes so you don't forget it. Then get back to work, to what you're working on.
All right.
And that has worked for me. Good question.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Last question, Asim Siddiqui.
Thank you very much. I just want to draw your attention to one important point that you made, and that was reading narrowly. And in fact, that has solved a major dilemma that I am facing. And my question is, sometimes publishers don't give you too much time, but we are maybe writing a book and we have very little time, but we also know that our work also requires a lot of reading. And when we see many of those academics books which are very heavily footnoted, where you see so many references, so how do we solve this dilemma? We have very little time, we have to read narrowly, but at the same time, academic books, they also have a certain demands, and probably we have to cover a lot of long scope.
I'm going to give you an unpopular answer. Don't do it. Stop the project. You get a different publisher, because you will be blamed for the mistakes. If there is something that you should read, take time and read it. Otherwise, don't. You are in charge, not the publisher. You will be blamed for the mistakes. By the way, I don't write books anymore. The reason I don't write books is that nobody can afford them. That should make your life a little easier. The price of books is so much money. I look and see what people are charging for books. I can't afford them. I don't order books anymore because they're much too expensive. So I hope I've made your life a little easier.
Thank you, Professor Krashen. Thank you, Professor Krashen. This was an end of the questions from the participants. Professor Warsi, if you permit me, can I ask from the organizer side one question?
Sir, just one very small question, because...
Okay, sure. Professor Krashen, this is regarding what you wrote in 2004 about power of reading. The book Power of Reading.
Right.
And I feel that, don't you think there is some kind of a contradiction also coming in the Secret 10, where you think that the reading is not very important for the writing?
No. This, not at all. First of all, a commercial message. The Power of Reading is available for free. You can download it. Go to my website, sdkrashen.com, and tell all your friends, okay?
Okay, sure.
Okay, what we're saying that it is not a contradiction. You can write before you read. That's not the end of it. That's the beginning.
You've muted yourself, Professor Krashen.
Okay, I said that Power of Reading is available for free on my website. And I said there's no contradiction. Elbow's idea is write right away so you get a beginning idea of what your ideas are. Then you go read. So reading is still crucial, important, but it's a good idea to just jot some ideas down first. Don't stop there. Then consult the literature, then do the reading.
Okay, thank you.
Let me thank Dr. Warsi for his wonderful hospitality managing this. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. There is one more thing to go, like formal vote of thanks. And before that, as a chairperson of this department, I must thank you for your generosity, for your time, for your wonderful, wonderful talk that after such a long time we had audiences from diverse places, diverse countries, and it was so wonderful to have you here. So now may I request Dr. Nazrin Laskar to please propose a formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Prof. Warsi. Good evening. I, on behalf of the Department of Linguistics and on my own behalf, thank Professor Stephen Krashen from the University of Southern California for accepting our invitation to deliver a web talk on a very pertinent topic, the challenges of which most of us experience and often get unnerved. We are very grateful to you, sir, for your very profound, scholarly, and thought-provoking talk. We look forward to your association with our department. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our attendees. Your support and enthusiasm motivate us to organize such academic programs. I express my deep sense of appreciation to Professor Muhammad Jahangir Warsi, Chairman, Department of Linguistics, for organizing a series of web talks during the pandemic to keep the academic tempo going. I acknowledge our gratitude to our Vice Chancellor for always inspiring us to strive for excellence. I'm grateful to all my colleagues in the department for their valuable advice and assistance. The office staff deserves special mention for all their hard work. Thank you. Good night.
Okay, last word from my side. Those who like, I would like to thank all the participants, and with a small announcement, our next speaker is Professor Noam Chomsky from MIT. So we'll keep our fingers crossed for the next speaker series. And thank you very much, Professor Stephen Krashen. Once like we have no words to thank you for your time, for your talk, and for the talk that you have spoken about secrets of writing. Thank you very much. I will be in touch with you soon.
Very good. My thanks to you. And good for you for inviting Noam Chomsky. That's wonderful. He is still the true living master, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir. I'm taking advantage of being in US, so like my so good that he agreed for. Thank you very much.
Okay, my
So we
pleasure.
are closing the talk now.
Thank you,
So
sir.
thank you. Bye.
Okay, thank you.